There's only one.
Good evening and welcome to the Thursday, December 14th, 2023 regular meeting of the school committee, as well as a joint meeting with the select board and the appropriations committee. I would invite those who are in the studio with us to please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, so first up on our agenda is public comment. I don't know if anybody is here for public comment. Come on up.
I am, and I'm also here for the other stuff too. But I'd like
Excellent.
to say
So start, we know who you are, but just for the
absolutely.
record, introduce yourself. And
Yep.
Amanda, we have a 3-minute, I'm sure you've seen, but Amanda will keep time for us.
Thank you. Hi, I'm Peter Thomas, 215 Pond Street in Hopkinton. Today, Hop News published an editorial entitled, "Want to Attract and Retain Town Employees? Let them enroll their kids in Hopkinton schools." The premise is to create a benefit that makes joining the town of Hopkinton as an employee an enticing option. As we all know, Town Hall has suffered from turnover recently. We have the #1 school system in the Commonwealth, and we should use that to attract talent. Our base case analysis indicates that it's likely only 36 new students would be added to the schools if every eligible employee took advantage of the program. Our current per pupil spending is $15,087, so if we were to pay for all these students, it would cost the town between $500,000 and $1 million a year. I've got the exact numbers on the article, but there is a way to make this a zero cost for Hopkinton taxpayers. It would require the school committee to vote to allow inter-district transfers, which we currently do not do. My ask tonight is for the school committee to explore whether it is possible for us to allow inter-district transfers, thereby ensuring other districts will pay for the tuition fee, but only as a condition of employment with the town of Hopkinton, full-time employment with the town of Hopkinton. In other words, we wouldn't open it up to anybody who just wants to put their kid in Hopkinton schools. We would say you have to be eligibility requires that you're an employee of the town, a full-time employee. Further, the benefit would expire if you terminated your employment with the town of Hopkinton. So in other words, this is a way to attract and retain employees, because if your kid's in the school, you're kind of anchored, right? You're there. There are numerous benefits to creating a program like this, including attracting top-tier talent and retaining them longer. But the first step is to see whether the school committee will allow this important initiative to be explored, because if you can authorize that and we can legally do it, then it becomes a zero cost to the school, to the town. And that would be a kind of a green light, I think, with the exception of the facilities discussion, which I know we want. But I am happy to share my math and my analysis with you to show you how we arrived at that number of 36, which is statistically insignificant considering we have greater than 4,000 kids enrolled.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I think maybe the first time this has been brought up in the time since I've been here anyway, and I would be interested in seeing your analysis.
Thank you so much. Appreciate your time tonight.
Thank you.
Muriel, welcome back. Glad to see you.
Thank you. Glad to be seen. Glad to see you.
All right, so yes, it is that we do appreciate you guys being here, especially
thank
after all you've been through.
Thank you.
We have a couple things. We're going to wait for appropriations and for the rest of the select board before we go into the joint meeting. But do you want to go ahead with the superintendent's report?
I surely will. And I will have my colleague, Mr. Lebrad, assisting me tonight in the superintendent's report. So tonight, our theme of the superintendent's report is Beyond the School Walls, and we will be sharing with you some information about PBIS and how it is now extended to the school bus, some summer math instruction that was done last summer, and our more recent holiday concerts. So sometimes our school bus behavior needs a little incentive, and our elementary assistant principals have now teamed up with the bus drivers to recognize students whose behavior on the bus is exemplary. And I think an important piece of this is that our assistant principals used to spend a good part of their morning going through the bus notes, and the drivers would write notes when children were misbehaving. And so now we've kind of flipped that on its head, and the drivers are giving the assistant principals sort of notices that the kids are doing really great things on the bus. So how that plays out with PBIS, the assistant principals actually led a training for the drivers about the ticketing system that we use with PBIS. And so now the assistant principals collect the positive tickets every morning. They celebrate positive behavior with the kids. And our kids from all 3 elementary schools, they can take the tickets and then exchange them for prizes at school. And we are actually seeing a lot of excitement about good behavior on the bus and ultimately improve student behavior. So that is fantastic. All right, this next one is yours, Mr. Lebrad.
All right, so you might recall back in June, I came before the committee to ask acceptance of a recommendation and a request to add 2 stipended positions for summer math program teacher leaders to facilitate an optional 1-month virtual summer program for our students in rising grades 1 to grade 6. So we wanted to share just a little bit of what we learned from that and what feedback we got. So we figured tonight would be a great opportunity. So if you look up at the slide, you'll see I'm going to show you 3 different examples of the types of questions our students were posed with this summer. So the first one here, and you don't have to answer these. It's more just for your own.
Thank God, we all
Yeah,
know
yeah.
I'm math challenged.
So the first one says, look at the 2 pictures. What do you notice? How are pictures A and B mathematically the same, and how are they different? A and B are the same because A and B are different because. And you'll remember that just at our last meeting, we talked about what our math instruction looks like and how it's much more than computation and arithmetic, but getting kids to be able to think, communicate, and reason why a certain thing makes sense. So a lot of open-ended type work there. The next question example that you'll see, this is a very open-ended, well, not very open-ended one, this is the opposite of an open-ended one, where we're simply asking our students through their interactive device to be able to use what they know about base 10 blocks, which is what's on the screen there, to be able to put that in numerical form. So knowing, for instance, the first there, they have 2 10s, which is 20, 4 1s, which is 4, so the child was able to write down to 24. On the right-hand side there, you can see a little icon, which if you look at really close is a picture of the teacher who was sending feedback, and it just says super awesome. And what's really cool about this is that all of our students were getting feedback either through writing, through a little virtual sticker, or through an audio recording of what their work was. And if they were a little off base, they got feedback on how to get a little bit closer to where they wanted to be. The last question, again, trying to link reality into our math. You can see, what do you notice? And to explain your thinking. So I'll share with you that one of the responses from one of our students is the student said this is a transcription of the audio recording. The student recorded 4 out of 12 are empty, 8 out of 12 are full. There are 12 muffins in total. What I want to know is who ate 4 muffins? So you can see that our kids had a great opportunity to keep thinking in authentic, low stakes opportunities to keep their math brains working all summer long. And just really quickly, 4 quick comments we got from parents. We did not solicit through a survey this feedback. This all came back just through email correspondence to the teachers. So the first one says, thanks again for all you do for these kiddos, especially responding and commenting on their activities. The next one says, her first reaction when she heard tomorrow was the last day, she said, oh no. That made me realize that she enjoyed all of her homework. Thank you so much for this initiation. Another parent wrote, the math program has helped my child this summer. I can see the difference. And then finally, thank you so much for doing this program. My first grader loves having some fun math activities to do. So we had, across rising grades 1 to 6, we had more than 250 students participate. So again, we had those 2 teachers that we funded through Title IV. And I want to thank Shelley Moran, our Director of Elementary Math, for making this a reality, and to our 2 teachers who did this work at the rising grades 1 to 3, Beth Newton, one of our Elmwood teachers, and grades 4 to 6, Jessica Coughlin, who is one of our Hopkins teachers.
It's so neat to see math being made fun as opposed to the drudgery.
And so just these last couple of slides, this week and next week, we will be doing all kinds of holiday concerts. So what you're seeing here is just Hopkinton Middle School, the orchestra, the band, and the chorus. So congratulations to our talented students, their dedicated teachers. And really this holiday season, we are grateful for the high quality music making in the Hopkinton Public Schools. And so thank you to Mr. Hay and all of the teachers. Just a little spoiler alert. Tonight, you'll see some PBIS, some additional math instruction stuff, and a teeny weeny music request in our budget presentation. And that's all we have for you.
Thank you.
What are the remaining holiday concerts?
Monday, Tuesday.
I think Monday, Tuesday.
Monday is band, high school band and jazz band. Mm-hmm. And Tuesday, I think, is orchestra, but check my work on that. I'm planning to
how
go Monday,
mathy.
that's how I know, yeah. I know Monday's band and jazz.
Did I miss the high school choral concert?
Oh, I don't know. I'd have to check. I can send you some info tomorrow.
Okay, because that's always my favorite.
Questions on Dr. Kavanaugh's report? Okay. Thank you. Let's, since we are, knock on wood, a little ahead of schedule.
Okay, sure.
Move down to some of the end items that we have. Let's see. So do we want to, let's finish out the reports first. So school committee chair report is quick. Warrants 24-027S and 24-028S have been approved and included in your folder. Are there liaison reports that people would like to share?
No report tonight.
All right. Do we want to have any conversation regarding the follow-up meeting with CPAC, kind of the next pieces of that? Do you want to have a conversation to get a date, maybe in January?
Yeah, I think that might be beneficial. That way we sort of have that date going forward, and then we also have sort of what it's going to look like. You know, who's going to lead that? What's the agenda going to look like? So at least we have some general formatting going forward.
I think we vote the budget on the is it the 21st? Let me look at my calendar, just in terms of looking at our schedule. Nope, sorry, I think it's actually, it must be the 18th, and then we submit it to the town manager on the 19th. Does that sound right?
That sounds right.
Those last, we could do it in January still, because those meetings are not quite as packed as the ones where we have all the department budget presentations. So can you get a couple of dates that would be convenient for them? If we can schedule them during a school, set a block aside during the school committee meeting, I think it's probably the easiest schedule-wise for us.
Absolutely.
If
I'll reach
that's-
out to CPAC and Abby and see how we can coordinate that time frames.
If that's a problem for them, then we can try to brainstorm around if there's not a school committee meeting that would work for them, but we have quite a few scheduled in January.
Terrific.
Sorry, is this a meeting to schedule the meeting that we agreed to have, or is this the meeting we
This
agreed
is,
to have?
this, I'm
in
talking about
October?
scheduling the meeting that we agreed to have, that would have taken place in October.
And it would be as part of a school committee meeting or separate?
So I was envisioning, kind of looking back through, as it would be a carved-out period of time as kind of an adjacent piece. Like, we didn't specify that in the
Yeah.
meeting, that it could or couldn't be
Yeah.
adjacent to a school committee meeting, but I think scheduling that might make it easier for those of us who have multiple committee meetings out during the week, if they're able to do that, and that's agreeable to them.
Okay. Very good.
That we could block out possibly the period of time before the school committee, like if we could do a 6 o'clock, or if we could do 6:30, depending on what,
That wouldn't be would that be a public meeting?
it would be public. And any time that we're gonna discuss where we're a quorum, we would be publicly
that's what
posted.
I thought.
And that's what we did. We had not targeted this to have a facilitator at it. We did use a facilitator back in, was it March?
I think it was.
It feels like a lot longer ago than that. We used a facilitator to kind of work through and help, and I apologize, I did not get that document to you. It feels like this meeting snuck up quickly since the last
Sure,
one.
sir, understood.
When we're doing the week-to-week ones rather than the every other week.
And as far as building the agenda, what do we envision that process to look like?
So I think the collaborative piece
Okay.
would be and I think that one of the big pieces of it was checking back in with the agreements that we made. So we want to make sure we have those available to, I know that they had the access to the same document as well, but just to make sure that we're all referencing the same set of agreements that we had made, and to check in to see how people feel like things are going.
And Georgette could send those all out, correct?
What I'll do is I'll gather that information, I'll report it back to this group through the chair, and then we can build it out from there.
That's great. That's great. And I'm glad that we're going to get that moving forward, and, you know,
Yeah, I'm excited. I mean, it's a great opportunity to build on those foundational relationships that are already there.
I agree. Thank you. Anybody else, did you have?
Me? No.
Okay. Then, were there any other liaison reports that people wanted to share? Okay, so we can move down. Do we want to go into items by consensus?
Oh, I was ready for it.
Oh, what were you?
Intent to
Oh, all right, let's do the
travel, is
intent
that
to
all
travel.
right?
I rolled right over that, looking
Okay.
to the bottom. Yep, go
Great.
ahead, that's a good one.
All right, so we have a request from a teacher at the high school, Z Hernandez, and she is looking for your approval to take students in grades 11 and 12 on a trip to Spain, and that would be for April of 2025. So it's a ways off. They would be departing on April 21st and returning on April 27th, and the cost for that is approximated at $3,765 per student.
Are there questions on the trip?
I think it's an excellent opportunity for them.
It is an excellent opportunity. I know we had talked about this when we had the EF tour come
Yes.
forward. The looking to see if there are other resources to be able to tap into to assist students who are not financially able to make that full.
They're going to do some fundraising, though, it appears, right?
It looks like it.
Yeah.
And I think Mrs. Rothermick and I have had that conversation about being able to assist kids if they are people who qualify, you know, for like free and reduced lunch and those kinds of things. We do have some money that would help students get to participate in this trip.
Fabulous. All right.
I think we should ask them to share their flamenco dancing when they come back.
Yeah.
I thought you were going to say they should invite us to help chaperone.
No, I have no intent, no desire to go to Spain.
Okay.
I think it's great that students, by the time they get to Spanish 4 and 5 and AP,
Yeah.
you know, they're really ready to flex their language skills.
Exactly.
Immersed in the country, so I think it's a great opportunity. Would you like a motion?
I would love a motion.
I will make a motion. I will make a motion to approve the international travel to Spain.
I'll second that motion.
So there's a motion by Amanda, a second by Susan. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. Great, thank you. All right, then you want to go into the donation for Hopkinton High School?
Yes, thank you. Mr. Hay is looking for you to request, he's requesting that you approve of the acceptance of a flute, 2 clarinets, and other musical instruments from the estate of Becky Maury, and they are valued at $1,200.
So I love the way that we have been able to
Yes.
receive donations to help with our music program. I know we've received a lot of them. Becky Maury, I happen to have known personally, was a talented musician and a wonderful person who we lost in the community, I think about a year ago. So I think this would make her happy. So
I would move to accept the donations from the estate of Becky
Maury.
Mooring, valued at $1,200.
great.
I'll second that.
Okay, so motion by Susan, a second by Adam. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. So with many thanks to the Maury family for that. All right, so then the kitchen supervisor request.
Thank you. You have before you a request for a new position. This is a kitchen supervisor position. Really, this is, again, in response to the increased meal participation that has come along with universal free meals. What we are also embarking on starting in January is opening up breakfasts as well. So this position would really be within the kitchens, helping to kind of increase efficiency in terms of their skills, their food output. They're just outputting much more than they were pre-COVID, universal free meals. So this position would really help with the efficiency across the district.
Fabulous.
How does the food service revolving account get its money now? Is it all state money?
That's correct.
Okay.
Any other questions?
Is this this wouldn't have been in the budget numbers that we saw with your presentation yet for next year, right? This is a request for this year,
This is for this
for
year,
right now, right? So
For
is this
right
built
now.
into will it be added to the budget?
for food service,
Yeah,
the revolving,
yeah.
yes.
And just to clarifying question on that, when it's moving, the position's moving forward into FY '25, it will continue to be funded by the revolving account.
That's
It gets
correct.
the money from the,
All
From all the food
cafeteria
sales.
positions are funded from the revolving account.
all right, I am very much in favor of improving kitchen efficiency. I know that the increased meal volume, and I know there are a lot of other things that are sold, drinks and things like that to students that are, the volume takes staffing, so I appreciate
Yeah,
it.
and I also think that the supervisory piece is going to be particularly important when we start talking about construction and renovation and having to look outside of the box for, potentially for alternatives to a standardized kitchen lunch for the students. So I think somebody in a supervisory position would be essential to making that happen.
I think that's an excellent point.
Great. All right, is there somebody who feels like they would like to make a motion on this?
I move to approve the kitchen supervisor position.
Okay, motion by Adam, or second by Susan. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed or abstained? Okay, so that is unanimous and passes. Thank you very much for bringing that
Thank
forward.
you.
Okay, so keep going for the items by consensus?
Sure, that's always very quick. As superintendent, I recommend the school committee approve the items by consensus as outlined in your agenda.
So moved.
Motion by Amanda. Is there a second on that?
Second.
Second by Adam. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye, and that is unanimous, it appears, and passes. I think if there are, we
clean the slate.
We clean the slate, so this is
did.
great, because I think some of the middle pieces, the budget piece, as well as the school committee vacancy may take longer than what we've allotted for, so it's nice we could appreciate a little bit of,
No, let's be efficient.
a little bit of an efficiency here. So I know we're probably still waiting for, we still got like 6 more minutes until we actually scheduled this piece.
I know Mary Jo is coming.
Yep. And Irfan, it looks like, is on remotely already.
I don't know if anybody else is on Zoom.
Yes, so I don't know if,
Never mind, you're shut.
are there any appropriations members who are coming, or going to be attending remotely? Are you expecting?
Maybe one or two.
Okay. And or do you have control of the Zoom?
I sure do.
How many people do we
It's
have in?
just one right now.
Okay. Okay.
So I know they also have to approve the Elmwood project.
So
do have a
do you
quorum.
guys want to go ahead with your piece to approve the Elmwood project piece, that you have a piece on the agenda for that? Are you prepared?
We-
to-
We should wait for Mary Jo.
Oh, right, okay.
Thank you.
We could take an unscheduled break.
I just heard the elevator.
That could, yeah.
So you're done with the whole rest of your agenda? That's pretty
Well, the pieces, the school committee vacancy and the budget piece, I think, are going to be,
Take the most time.
we want to make sure we have enough time to allot appropriately to those, even if they go beyond what's
Yep.
allotted in the agenda, so.
Do you need a motion to adjourn for 5
We-
minutes?
We do not need a motion to adjourn for 5 minutes, but I do wonder, that actually the elevator does not appear to still be going. You guys will need to open your meeting
We can actually open the meeting before Mary Jo. So I'll entertain a motion to, or I'll open the select board meeting and just ensure that all members present and on Zoom can hear. Irfan, are you able to hear us?
Yes, I can.
All right, we can hear you. And then Mary Jo will be present too. So any votes, we will have to, by roll call vote when the time comes. Okay.
Point of order, on the agenda, we have 7:30 as the start time.
Yes,
That should be okay.
yes. We're a little early opening it, but nobody's going to hate us for that.
Yeah, I don't
We'll be ready to hit the,
hit the ground running.
yeah, as long as we don't start before 7:30, we're all set.
Right.
So,
I have one more individual I'm going to let into the Zoom.
Yeah, is it okay to let people from the outside in?
Sure. I know that one of our applicants for the school committee vacancy was going to be attending remotely as well.
Okay.
Did anybody have any future agenda items for the school committee that you wanted to throw out for discussion in the upcoming meeting that are not already on our radar? And do we have, is Jack going to be here tonight?
He is
At
not.
8:30? He's not going to
No.
be here, okay. I feel like you might have told us that last week.
I think. Those are very big this test. Yeah. I told
Well,
them.
school is always
Very
first.
more important, much more important.
really well. You're very lucky. Thank you.
You could have been thinking how many
Some
muffins were
things
left over from this year.
I can't do this.
I can't lie, when I saw the photo of the muffins, it did make me a little hungry.
Just get a little
Did you do that, Jeffrey?
right now.
Did you do that?
I did not do that.
Really well, thank you.
We may need more chairs up here, is the other thing people could bring up. Chairs from,
Yes.
we had a couple more appropriations members. Plus Mary Jo and Norman.
Bob did tell me that seems like you could use tables.
So so we need one more for the select board, and then we need a chair for Mike and Norman, so that's 1, 2.
Joe can have it here.
Thank you. And then,
Oh, sure.
are you're expecting other members, right? Okay,
For runoff procedure.
Thank you, Peter.
Since we're going past town.
we can,
Maybe we put Mary Jo right here, Norman, you're here, yeah? Are you up on this?
Is that enough? Do we have enough for select?
Yeah, I think so. I don't know where were you going to go?
I was gonna be a rose between the thorns.
oh, these are,
Oh, wait a minute, I had that backwards.
As a thorn?
I had that backwards, didn't I?
Yeah, but that's all right. We're okay. Should we, I know. I think he meant it the other way, so I'm gonna give him a moment.
Little latitude there?
Yeah. We can probably move over.
that's great, thank you.
Make a little more, teeny bit more space.
Mary Jo is coming.
She's coming, yeah. That's for Mary Jo, yeah.
Oh,
Oh, is there enough space?
It's like that. I'm from March, you will see that. It was in March.
Maybe it was in May.
No,
It was definitely, I think, I'm virtually positive it was in March. All right, we are at 7:30 now.
We can start.
Do it?
We can start.
Okay.
I mean,
All right, so.
unless, I mean, do you have to call your meeting to order, Mike? Do you have a?
Doesn't have a quorum yet.
Okay.
We can pause at that point and start, I think there's a budget presentation if we want to start with that. And then when you have more appropriations members, you can call the appropriations committee to order. That's not- Oh, great, she. Okay,
Are you ready for us?
I am ready for you guys.
Okay, thank you. Thank you all for being here tonight and permitting Mrs. Rothermick and me to present our consolidated, for the first time, FY25 budget presentation. As always, we have approached our FY25 budgeting, stressing fiscal responsibility, and really, I think tonight you'll see that we have responded to shifts in demographic and student needs. Another goal is to maintain Hopkinton's exceptional educational and extracurricular programs, to offer curriculum and instruction that meets the needs of all of our learners, including their academic, behavioral, mental health, and special education, and social emotional needs, to accommodate enrollment growth, and to support all of the building principals' school improvement plans. So here you can see, oops, let Mary Jo get comfortable. Here you can see the Dr. Arthur Wagman enrollment projections.
It's 3. Jean is now on 2. Jean is now on.
If it's easier, Caroline, for you, if you want to sit over here so you can see the screen. I'm just realizing that screen typically has the presentation, but right now it has the Zoom on it.
And Mike, Jean is now on.
Is, possible for her to enlarge the database on the screen?
You need to
don't
make
know if
sure
it's
that
possible
Jean
to
can
enlarge
hear
that.
you and be heard. Just ask her. Was she, can we live
Yep.
interrupt?
Jean, can you hear?
I can, yes, I can hear. It's a little bit quiet, but I'm going to adjust the sound on my end.
Did you guys call the meeting to order?
Okay, great.
So what you're seeing on the screen are the enrollment projections. These were done by Dr. Arthur Wagman. I know you've all seen them before. And if you were able to see that up close, you would see that at the end of the 23-24 school year, his prediction would be that we would have 4,186 students in the district. At this time, we are at 4,217. So we are tracking just a little bit ahead of where he predicted we would be, just about 31 students. The budget that you'll see tonight was built for 4,290 students, and the prediction is that's where we will be in at least by the date of June 2025. So I wanted to take our pre-K to 12 enrollment and kind of blow it up for you. As I just said, we're at 4,217 students, 31 over what we budgeted for. But despite the additional 31 students, we are really asking only for staffing that meets very specific needs. And these are very carefully considered needs. I mean, I know that we are at a place right now where we are asking a lot of the community. And so if you see it in the budget presentation tonight, it's something that we truly believe is a need for our students. One thing you may also want to note on this slide here is that you can see that I've boxed in grades 4 and 5, and that information will become important as we move through the presentation. What you can see here is that it shows you the population at Hopkins School, which is at 684 students right now. So I'll start by showing you these very minimal building principals educator asks. These are the things that our building principals have asked for that fall sort of into that category of teacher. At the Marathon School, Mrs. DeVoe has asked for a 0.5 adjustment counselor. All of the other elementary schools have 2.0 FTE adjustment counselors, and she has 1.5. We do see student behaviors that warrant the hiring of an additional 0.5 adjustment counselor to fill her out to a 2.0 FTE school adjustment counselor. At Elmwood, Mr. Broninger has asked for 1.2 math tutors. Those two positions, they're 2.6 positions, and they have previously been funded through a grant, and we have become sort of very reliant on these folks who are helping our kids to get to places where they're meeting benchmarks in mathematics. And really, that's the role of the math tutor. It's very low money, and it's very big impact on student learning. At Hopkins School, Mr. Mr. Cotter is looking for a .05 music teacher. And you might be thinking, is that a typographical error? Is he looking for really .5? No, it's .05. And that position is really in response to student enrollment growth in music. Right now, we have 140 chorus students at the Hopkins School. And so it may make better sense to have two groups of 70 as opposed to one group of 140. So it's a very reasonable ask, I think, and it's very good for teaching and learning. There will be an assistant principal ask at that school, but that's described later because it doesn't fall under the sort of educator asks. At the middle school, Mr. Lefebvre is looking for a .2 Mandarin teacher. He needs that because we'll have 4 sections next year of Mandarin Chinese instruction at the middle school. And finally, at the high school, Mr. Bishop is looking for a 1.0 teacher. The outgoing senior class is small. I believe it's about 275 students. And the 8th grade class coming in is larger, so he's going to inherit about 32 more students at the high school next year. So he'd like to take this 1.0 FTE and spread it out across ELA and social studies classes. He'll determine how that is after the students go through that whole process of scheduling in the spring. So I want to talk a little bit about the student demographic data and the impact it's having on our budget. You will see that we have more students with special education needs. You'll see that we have fewer students with English learner needs. And then just due to our increased overall enrollment at Hopkins, it's really translating to the need for an additional building-based administrator. So I'll start with special education student data. The big blue bar across the middle of this slide comes right from the DESE website, and it shows you the number of students we had on IEPs in fiscal years 19, 20, 21, and 22. And those numbers went from 442 to 464 to 476, and then finally at 480. Today, we have 614 students who qualify for special education services. Of those students, 35 of them are out of district, and I believe 6 of them are exclusively related services. So what we're really looking for here are teachers. I can give you a little bit of historical data on the next slide, but here what you're seeing is that the radar data that DESE puts out will help us to see how Hopkinton compares to other school districts that we very often compare ourselves to for reasons of we want to be like them, they want to be like us, share a contiguous border, whatever it happens to be. So Hopkinton has 7.3 FTEs, teachers, for every 100 students with disabilities. In past years, this bar here used to be further up, and it used to be in sync with the Waylands and the Westbros, who are somewhere around 10. But our bar has shrunk over the last several years. And you can see that carried out here. In 2019, we had 10 FTEs for every 100 students with disabilities. In 20, that dropped to 8.4. In 21, it went back up to 9.3, probably because we hired a couple of special educators. In 22, it went back down to 8.8. I know we've shown you the data before of when we've hired special education teachers or nurses or paraprofessionals or related services providers along the way. At any rate, in 2023, that number went down to 7.3. And 7.3 is really too low. We should probably be about 10 FTEs per 100 students with disabilities. And so you will see requests in this budget for special education teachers, not paraprofessionals, not related service providers, people who do speech, OT, or PT, but these are teachers in special education classrooms or people who are co-teaching with general education teachers. Now I'll share with you some English learner data. What you're seeing on the screen are 3 calendar years. So you see the year 2021, 2022, and 2023. And we highlight the numbers of students that we had who were getting English learner services in June, September, and October. June and October are months when we get our SIMS reports, and September is the month, obviously, when school begins. So we really feel like we're comparing good data and we're comparing apples to apples data. So in the year 2021, if you take a look at September, we had 318 students who qualified to receive English learner services. If you skip down to the year 2022, you can see that that number went down to 216 students. And sometimes you'll see kind of a dramatic drop like that, but numbers will come back up. These numbers here in 22 and 23 feel very similar. And so we feel like we may be at that sort of point of equilibrium. If we look at 216 and the 193, there's a 20. If we take a look at October, there's a 16 student difference between 22 and 23. So the numbers are clearly coming down. Some of our ESOL teachers have caseloads of 11, 15, 16, they go as high as 27. And so as we're looking at numbers like 23 and 16, we believe that we would be able to eliminate one of those ESOL teachers and be perfectly fine in being able to manage the caseloads in the ESOL department. I want you to know that we've already had a conversation with all of the ESOL staff. We invited them to an in-person meeting this morning. And the other thing that is true is that many of them hold multiple certifications, meaning they're certified to teach ESOL, but they're also certified to teach elementary or secondary or special education. So we believe that we're going to be able to find a position by involuntarily transferring them into another spot in the Hopkinton Public Schools. This really just shows you the numbers that we're talking about. As of today, we have 226 students. We have 11 people who are teachers in that department. So if we take the 226 and divide it by 11, the average caseload today is about 20.5. That caseload does not count a grant-funded half-time ESOL tutor. So that person is also able to pick up about 16 students, and that's who she's working with right now. With a reduction to 10 teachers, you'd have 226 kids today, and that would push the average caseload to 22.6, which we think is reasonable. And we also believe that with the assistance of the half-time tutor, who can pick up some of the kids, it would even further lower those caseloads. Our administrative request. At Hopkins School, we are looking to add an assistant principal. In 2015-16, which was the first school year I was in the Hopkinton Public Schools, we had 503 students at Hopkins. And today we have 684 students at Hopkins. So we're really talking about 181 kids. That's a lot of additional students when you only have one assistant principal for all 684 of them. At that time, there were also 24 classroom teachers, 12 and 12, and today there are 30. So we have 6 additional teachers, but we have no additional assistant principal in that building. What's happening now when someone files a bullying report? We've had 4 allegations of bullying since the start of the school year. It really pulls the assistant principal offline, and when the assistant principal is conducting all of those interviews, she can't do them alone. And so what we're doing now is we're using a school adjustment counselor to go through that whole interview process with her. So what we're really doing is taking some of those, I guess, counseling services away from kids who might be needing them, because we need 2 people to conduct, all of the bullying investigation. And when you look at the difference between the 30 and the 24, that means that there are 6 more people to evaluate in that building. And there are also obviously more special educators and school adjustment counselors and all of those folks, because when you increase your student enrollment by 181 students, you're increasing all of your staff. So for that reason, we genuinely believe that we need another assistant principal there. And on the next couple of slides, you're going to see another reason why I think that this person would be really important to what's happening at Hopkins. So we also have an administrative reduction. And that reduction is in our Director of Social Emotional Learning. That's one of those positions that's not really student-facing. It's a position that helps us to orchestrate what happens with social emotional learning. That person has been with us for 3 years, and what you see in this matrix right here are all of the things that have been designed and built over the last 3 years. So we have an SEL curriculum in grades K to 8. The PBIS that I promised from the superintendent's report. You see that in here, and we've probably been doing that since before she arrived, but she took it on valiantly when she got here. So PBIS is up and running and is very strong. and beautifully situated in grades K to 5. The JED framework is relatively new. She's been working on that with Mr. Bishop and some of the faculty at the high school. You know that we've been working on our alignment to the CRIOP for the past 3 years, the 3-cell signature practices over the last 3 years. The CLOC research, we're partnered with Yale University and they're doing work at the Elmwood School. That's been going on for a couple of years. We're now in year 2 of 3. The Massachusetts Department of Elementary and Secondary Education has just released comprehensive new health and PE frameworks. And even though they're calling them wellness frameworks, you see a lot of social emotional standards embedded in there. And that's really true, I think, of the ELA and the mathematics standards. When you look at the practices, there are things such as perseverance and communication and those things. The holistic student assessment work is underway. We've done it now, I think, 2 years in a row. We give the survey to the kids and we look to see if they are at Tier 1. They are doing very well with their strengths and their challenges, Tier 2 or Tier 3. And now we have our counseling departments taking a look at all of that data. So we feel like we've been in a place that we might call design build, and now we're moving to maintenance. So how will we be able to accommodate that while we think about next steps for SEL? In that restructuring process, for curriculum and instruction, given the changes to PE wellness and other DESE frameworks, and coupled for that need for both discrete and embedded skill instruction in the classroom, SEL instruction will fall largely to Mr. Lebrad as the Assistant Superintendent for Curriculum and Instruction, and he will be assisted by the people who work with him, the subject matter leaders, and our Director of Equity and Access. And further, our teachers really have, I think, the stability of the CRIOP now to help them at the classroom level. In terms of the SEL data and the things that we harvest through the HSA, we're going to transition to, and I think we've been doing this already, most of the work is done in a way that we would call site-based. It happens either at the Hopkins School, the middle school, or the high school. So the HSA surveys are done there. It's done during like Hiller Block or Flex Block. And then that data, once harvested, goes to the school counseling departments. Our assistant principals and adjustment counselors will help our kids to continue to grow their SEL skills at Tier 2. And that especially also happens through restorative practices. And I should mention that that's one of the things that she has also brought to our administrators and teachers is the ability to use restorative circles and implement restorative practices in the classroom. So you can see right here that an additional assistant principal would be super helpful, very boots on the ground at Hopkins. Mr. Cotter's current assistant principal, who was recently hired when he moved into the principalship, is a person who has extensive SEL experience, and I think she brings that to Hopkins, so to have kind of the backup of an additional person there would be very helpful. Finally, in terms of counseling services, and this really, I mean, while some of it is Tier 1, it largely moves into the Tier 2 and Tier 3 realm. Our Director of Student Services will oversee all the counseling and social work services. And because she is now able to sort of deputize her two other administrators who work K to 5 and 6 to 12 in terms of curriculum and instruction, we really feel like she has the bandwidth to oversee that high quality counseling that we're accustomed to in the Hopkinton Public Schools. Before closing, I always feel that it's important to show you these slides. Out of all of these communities, you can see that we still have a very manageable per pupil expenditure at $16,177 per student.
This is the most recent.
This is the most
different
recent
than
one.
what we had the last
Yes, it is.
time we put this together.
We also like to show you what per pupil expenditure looks like broken down into buckets. If you see a green circle, you know that we are in the top 30% of districts in the Commonwealth. Blue means we're in the bottom 50%. Red means that we're in the bottom 25%. As we're looking at this, it feels like we are getting a lot of bang for our buck. We have very good outcomes, very good results, very high ranking, and we are not spending an awful lot of money per pupil to get us there. And so I'm very proud of the people who work in our school district. They work very hard. I'm proud of the kids who come to school prepared to learn every day, and I'm thankful for the families who get them there prepared to learn every day. Just in terms of administration and instructional leadership, you can see that we are in blues and reds, and so while it might feel like we are administratively heavy, the numbers sort of tell a different story.
Is there anywhere that we're not in blue or red on the, it's hard to
That's what I was
say.
trying to
I
No.
know last year there was one,
Professional development. Professional
yeah,
development in
but
21,
everything else we were,
yeah.
Lower.
In 22, this is the most recent data we have, it's lower.
it looks like more reds on the bottom.
Yeah, maybe a few more, yeah. Yeah.
We are doing well.
We are doing very well, and now I will hand it over to Mrs. Rothermick to talk about dollars and cents.
Thank you. Okay, so dollars and cents. The operating budget, you can see from this slide, the salary increase is 2.2 million, or a 3.77% increase. Our expense increase is 947,000, or a 1.58% increase. The total increase for the budget tonight is 3,207,037, for a total increase of 5.35%, representing 63,144,790. And as a reminder, we also use revolving accounts and circuit breaker to also reduce the amount that is requested of the general fund for the budget. We use the parking revolving, building use, bus revolving, preschool revolving, athletics, international tuition, and circuit breaker for a total offset for the FY25 budget of $3,499,000. And you can see there's an increased use from the FY24 budget offsets of $802,932. Those buckets are represented in an increase in the athletic revolving of $100,000, the preschool revolving of $90,000, and about a $600,000 increase in circuit breaker. So from a gross operating budget perspective, the net operating budget for 25 again is the $63,144,000. Revolving offsets of $3,499,000, and there is still the need for the special education reserve of $1,094,000, which has been level funded over the last several years, so the request has not increased. So breaking the budget down by the educational programs, you can see the 54% is regular education, student services at 24%, and then it goes into much smaller buckets, building and grounds at 6%, technology at 4%, transportation at 4%, central office at 4%. Looking at it from a salary and expense, school districts, as all municipalities, are salary heavy. So you can see that the budget is roughly an 80-20 split between salary and expenses, which again is typical of a municipal school district operating budget. So getting into the details of the salaries, the contractual obligation increase is $1,557,000, and staff requests represent $701,000 for total FY25 salaries of $50,368,813. Now, we like to break the budget into specific budgets, or buckets, if you will, to give it really a more sense of what is driving the budget. So again, from a salary perspective, our contractual obligations are $1,557,000. Requests from special education represent $246,000, which is 3.6 FTEs. And this is offset by an increase in the revolving and grant that we spoke about in the previous slide. Instructional cost and enrollment growth is $241,000, and that is 2.95 FTEs. Instructional program enhancements are 0, and support is 213,000, which is 2.9 FTEs. So again, the salary increase is 2,259,000, which represents an increase of 9.45 FTEs. Diving down a little bit deeper, student services, again, 3.6 FTEs. 3.5 is teaching at Elmwood Middle School and High School. 5 FTEs are paraprofessionals at Marathon, Elmwood, and Hopkins. 5.2 of these FTEs is offset by 121,000 in grants and 90,000 in the preschool revolving, and an additional 0.3 FTE of administrative support. From the instructional cost and enrollment growth bucket, 2.95 FTEs for teaching. And again, these were covered by Dr. Kavanaugh's earlier slide. Marathon at 0.5, Elmwood at 1.2, Hopkins at 0.05, high school at 1.0, and middle school at 0.2. It also represents the 1.0 ESOL reduction, the 1.0 FTE for the ELA director, which has been formally covered by a grant in the last 2 years, and an increase in our substitute accounts to account for actual. That was done by looking at a 3-year average to get those up to actuals. Administration, support, and facility enhancements, the 2.9 FTEs. 1.0 is the Hopkins assistant principal. 1.0, a building and grounds assistant director. 1.0 custodian. 8.5 athletic trainer. Coaches stipends for new programs, which is offset by 100,000 increase in athletic revolving. Technology summer help, 0.4 FTE administrative assistant for the assistant superintendent, and the 1.0 SEL director reduction. Again, the total staff requests of 9.45 were 701,000. Moving into the expenses, again, the expense increase is 947,000. Looking at your expenses by educational program, again, you're looking at your student services at 30%, transportation at 20%, technology at 15%, and building and grounds at 17%. And most of these really represent contracted services, so they are not discretionary, and that makes up the majority of your expenses. So again, looking at the buckets for the increase, contractual inflation and current services increase is 283,000. That represents transportation, technology, building and grounds. Student services, an increase of 190,000, which again is transportation, out-of-district tuitions, and contracted services. Instructional cost, enrollment growth, and replacement cycles of 473,000, which is transportation, technology, and furniture, fixtures, and equipment, for the total increase of 947,000. And again, going one layer deeper, going back to contractual inflation and current services, transportation, 84,000, that is the new contract for transportation for this year. Technology is increase in our student information systems and hardening our security and inflation. Building and grounds is within grounds maintenance, contracted services for new preventive maintenance contracts, and repair and maintenance of 18,000. The last, the miscellaneous other, regular education increase of 38,000, occupational day decreased 49,000, athletics increased 21,000, and their miscellaneous others for 283,000 for that bucket. Student services, there's an increase in transportation for 99,000. Out-of-district tuitions actually decreased 67,000, and that is all due to changes in student need and net increase of $612,000 of circuit breaker, and contracted services increase of $142,000. Again, that total increase is $190,000. Instructional cost, enrollment growth, and replacement cycles of $473,000. Transportation increase is $212,000. That is 2 additional buses and adding tiers to existing buses. Some of our buses were doing 1 tier, meaning only one, either high school or elementary. This brings them to doing both tiers. Technology, an increase of $194,000 for replacement leases and projectors. And FF&E, furniture, fixture, and equipment of $67,000 for copier leases and classroom furniture. And again, you can see there's nothing for instructional program or administrative support or facility enhancements. So bringing those all back together, you have your FY24 base budget of $59,937,000. The contractual inflation and current services of $1,841,000. Special education of $436,000 with 3.6 FTEs. Instructional cost enrollment growth of $715,000 and 2.95 FTEs. 0 for instructional program enhancements. Administration, support, and facility enhancements, $213,000 and 2.9 FTEs, for the total increase in the budget of $3,207,000. Bringing that into percentage increases, you can see the contractual inflation in current services represents a 3% increase to the budget. Special education, 0.73% increase. Instructional cost and enrollment growth, a 1.19% increase. And the administration, support, and facility enhancements is a 0.36% increase, for a total increase, again, of 5.35%. Also keeping in mind the special education reserve of $1,094,000, which is a level fund request from '24. And just as a reminder, in addition to the operating budget is the capital plan. This has been presented both to the school committee and to CIC at this point. Again, our end-of-life replacement cycle, the vehicle of $80,000, that will be paid for out of a revolving account. That will not be a request to the town. Technology district-wide of $100,000, HVAC district-wide of $700,000, the high school track and field 3 of $350,000, and again, that's just for the design and engineering. From an enrollment growth perspective, the Marathon Playground of $1 million, and the Hopkins School addition of $46,743,000. So the total capital request is $48,973.
48 million.
48 million. I apologize.
Small difference.
In your dream.
Couple zeros among friends.
Couple zeros.
And that's it for the numbers.
Okay. That's great, and that's, all right, so want to welcome both appropriations and the select board for coming. And this was, I believe, Shahidul, this was your brainchild to have this joint meeting at this point rather than waiting until our big joint meeting where we have our public hearing in January.
I'll take the blame for that.
No, I think it's a great idea. I think it hopefully will set us up for more success in January without so much angst.
Thanks.
Just for people who are here in the studio and at home, just a kind of a little bit of an overview on the process. Next week, Dr. Kavanaugh will make her superintendent's budget recommendation, hear feedback from all of us here tonight. And then we will come back in January. We will have 3 meetings in January, and ultimately we'll have our public hearing on the 11th of, is that, feels like not the right, my calendar. It is, it's the, we'll have a meeting on the 4th. We don't like to come right back right after the beginning of, the new year with the public hearing, but our public hearing will be on January 11th. It will be again a joint meeting so that we can reconvene after we've heard from our public commenters. And then on the 21st, we will vote a budget and submit it to the town manager's office by the next day. So start with questions and comments on the presentation. I don't know if the school committee has anything if we want to start. Anybody on appropriations or select board want to start as well with questions or comments?
So we had targeted, by the way, congratulations, it's very clear, very wonderful, and you've worked really hard to come in pretty tight. My question is, the difference between the goal of 4.6 and 5.35 is 0.75%. What is the dollar value for your budget?
I believe it was about 560,000. I think the original goal was 4.4.
Oh, can you get, sorry, thank you for that, little correction right there. So what would be the difference, is still the 560K?
It is.
Okay, thank you. And then the only other question I have at this juncture is the portions that you have dedicated monies from the revolving accounts, is that a process that you're going to be able to do year over year, or is this a one-time find of money?
No, so this is, we look at the revolvings annually and try to increase them that they would be sustainable, rather than increasing them too high that next year would be a cliff.
Right.
So as of right now, these are sustainable funding mechanisms for a number of years.
Okay, I appreciate that. Thank you very much. That's what I have right now. Amy?
Yeah, I want to thank you for sending the PowerPoint this afternoon. It's really helpful for me because I can't see that screen to have it in front of me on the computer. Thank you. I had a question. The CPC was looking at the Marathon Playground, I think, to see if they were able to fund part of that. Do we know if that?
Not tonight. But
They're voting tonight,
Oh, they're voting tonight. Okay, so we'll find out
so
tomorrow.
we don't know.
Okay, so that could be a potential reduction. And then the English learner students, I was surprised it's been such a decrease in the last 2 years. So I'm just curious, is it people moving out and graduating, or is it students that are aging, or they're not aging out, they're testing out of the program, they're fully able to speak English now?
They are. Perhaps the only part of our meeting with the ESOL teachers today was that we told them they did such a beautiful job that they were putting
That they were-
themselves out of work.
Yeah, well, that's great, because that's what
It
we
is
want.
great news, yes. Yeah.
And then I think just, it's a pretty tight budget, but a little over than what we had hoped, so you'll be keeping in mind things that maybe could be shifted if necessary, I presume. Right?
Thank you for the wonderful presentation, a lot of good work, and I appreciate coming together. I think this is going to help us align, as I was mentioning earlier, and help also communicate the needs, the challenges we may have, and help everyone together solve this, which is what we want to do through these sessions. A couple of technical questions and then just some commentary. One is, I forgot which page it is, the number of SPED average that you had. I read one place it was 614 is the current total, and in the calculation, I think you had 533 used for 7.3 average. There may be just an anomaly, but if we use 614, it'll probably go down further. We can talk offline if that's a mathematical error. But the question I was asking is that the 3.6, would it keep us at the level in terms of where we are in the overall quadrant, or it would help get us better?
Yes, I think it's going to put us where we want to be. Just so you understand, the two of those positions are for intensive special needs classrooms. And when we have students who are in our intensive classrooms, we try to keep them like 10 or fewer. And when they start to creep up over that mark of 10, you have one teacher for 10 or 11 or 12 or 13 kids. And because their needs are so disparate, some of them are leaving the classroom to be included in an art class or a social studies class or an English class. And typically they'll have a paraprofessional that goes with them, but that one teacher is setting up the schedules for all of those kids. And so then it just becomes untenable if you have a very large number, and that teacher does become the teacher of record. So if they're doing ELA in the classroom or doing math in the classroom, that person's got to be able to figure also how to pull enough small groups to make sure that everybody's getting what is required on their IEP. And you just can't make it happen if the numbers get too high. So 2 of the teachers are for intensive special needs classrooms.
Yeah, thank you for explaining. Yeah, I was looking at the same, that the actual average, and I could be wrong in my calculation, might be a little bit lower than 7.3 if we use 614.
No, it's 7.3 teachers for every 100 kids with. Am I
Right.
explaining that well?
And the number of students is 533 or 614?
614.
Yeah, but you use 533 on this page. Maybe, I don't want to get into the details.
Is that last year maybe? Or
Oh, that's because it's 22, 23.
Oh,
And
okay, so that's
614
not
is where we
20.
are today. That's right, I'm sorry.
No, no,
We-
no problem.
We are kind of comparing apples and oranges because you're looking at older DESI radar data, but they haven't updated it.
I see,
I'm
okay.
sorry. Yeah.
But your number of FTEs are still 39 until you had the new ones. So the average as it stands now is less than 7.3 is what I was thinking.
Well,
Or have
even
you
that
hired
number of
mid-year?
39 is probably artificial because I think what happens is we will add as we go. So for example, you're seeing a .5 ask, I think, at the Elmwood School, but that person's actually already here.
Working on that?
Yeah.
Okay, okay.
We've added that person in this year, but it appears in the FY25 budget.
Right, okay. No, I was just trying to match that in my head, and I think 3.6 would certainly help, and that's what you're trying to do, so I appreciate that. And then overall budget-wise, I think it's very close, so I'm happy to see that. And I was a little bit, again, for my learning, a little bit concerned that the professional development, we are in the last quadrant almost. Is that a good thing? I mean, from a budget side, it might look good, but from an overall, long-term quality perspective,
And what you also see in that professional development, if grant money is spent on professional development, that's in there as well, so.
oh, okay,
Yeah.
yeah. I'm sure you're keeping an eye on that, so something to think about. Now, because we are in budget and we want to, tighten the belt, I'm all for it, but I'm also all for, making sure you have what you need to sustain the quality and improve it,
Yeah.
as you are doing. We have great schools, so.
What I will say is, and you probably see it more in an instructional leadership bucket there, but if we have people who are K-5 curriculum directors at ELA and math, and then one in the middle school, and then 2 for special education, they do a lot of professional development with our teachers that you wouldn't see in that bucket.
Okay, thank you. And last one for now. Overall, and this might be a larger discussion, when we were looking at the last little bit of budget gap, I think post that, Tim O'Leary mentioned to us that there were other venues, including the free cash, that was covering most of it. Do we know the current state of things? Is it covering it still, or we are still at a gap with these numbers?
We, again, before I even answer, great presentation. We just received this information in preliminary discussions late this afternoon. We have not crunched how this would impact
Okay.
the overall budget gap.
Got it. Thank you, Norman. I think I have my answers now. I was looking at the inflation and the inflation numbers and contractual. Most of the money, more than 50%, actually 3 point something, is because of that. So you're being very cautious to manage the growth within the budget, so I appreciate that. And hopefully we can, resolve the difference that we may have now. Thank you. Great work.
Thank you.
Very
I want to congratulate you on this presentation. It's really well put together. Excuse me. I'm interested in the special education student data, and I see an increase there. I wonder how many families have more than 2 children in special ed? I've been reading things about special ed that people like it, and they particularly push to get their kids into special ed. I'm not sure I understand that, but do we have families of 2 to 5 kids in special ed?
So I wouldn't know, I mean, of course, we have some families who have multiple children who have IEPs. And I'm sure that in our student services office, we would be able to tell you, sort of that data. But just to sort of clarify about the IEP process, what happens when, we sort of wonder if a student would need additional assistance is that, a whole lot of testing is done, and then we put a whole lot of people in a room, and it's everyone from educators to team chairs to special educators and parents, and we sit and we talk about the student and the data that we're looking at, and then we decide whether or not that person qualifies for an IEP. So they don't just kind of happen willy-nilly. There really has to be the data on the table, and it has to be the agreement of the team that that person needs additional assistance.
I would also,
Thank you very much.
I would also wonder too, if you're looking at multiple children in one family, there are certainly some disabilities which may have a genetic predisposition that for, if one sibling has it, the likelihood of another sibling might have a similar disability.
Yes.
Good to know.
I'll go to the Zoom for Irfan next.
Yeah, I really don't have any questions. I do want to say, thank you for a great presentation. And I like the idea of meeting this early in order to get a preview as to, what to expect. And I realize it's all very early in the process, but yeah, thank you very much for a great presentation. And yeah, I echo all the comments from the other select board members.
Great, thank you. Mike, do you want to?
I'll start with the other members. Caroline, do you have any questions?
Yes, I have a couple questions. One is, I know we've been discussing about special education for quite a while now. So one additional question is, so looking at this chart, do we have a goal, like we would maintain certain number of teachers per 100 special ed students, not the intensive one, just the overall. So right now we are higher than the state average. Are we looking at matching certain, like a state average? We're looking at selling at maybe 8 or 9 or 10, or because I can imagine every year we would come with some fluctuation. But if we have certain goals, we can proactively, make the, prediction or adjustment.
Yeah, I like to keep that number somewhere around 10, so you'd have 10 special educators for every 100 students with disabilities. But you should know that that is never a perfect science. So for example, at the elementary level, you might have somebody who has like 9 students on their caseload, but at the high school, you could have somebody who has 23 students on their caseload. So you just sort of see that, that's sort of a continuum. And it really all depends on the students and their profiles and how they're grouped and how they're scheduled, so it will vary.
Okay, thank you for that. My second question is related to student service. Susan, in your presentation, I remember there's a pie chart list out the transportation costs and student service. Are they two separate categories? Or I thought transportation is within the student service.
So there are two categories. You saw transportation actually in 2 different places, actually 3 different places. So in inflation, because our existing contract for our buses went up by a percentage, so that was our existing contract. We also are adding additional buses, so that was enrollment growth. But then also within the student services budget, there is their own transportation. And that's for students that are not able to ride the regular bus or are being transported to out-of-district schools. So you see transportation in several places.
Right. Okay, thank you.
Jean Birchman, do you have any questions?
Yeah, thank you. I was able to hear the presentation, but I'm not able to really hear the conversation very well, so I apologize if anybody has already asked these questions. Could you just remind me in terms of circuit breaker what the percentage is for funding?
Well,
Is it fully funded at this point?
it changes every year, so.
Right.
I believe we're around 72%.
Okay, that's great, thank you. I don't really have a lot of questions. I think this is really helpful to get a snapshot of where you are right now. Obviously, you're the biggest department in the town budget. I wasn't really able to hear the revenue updates that Shahidul had asked about, so I'll catch up with those later, but I know there are a lot of moving parts, and I appreciate that we are keeping in touch with each other and keeping each other up to date, and we will just have to continue to follow the process.
All right, thanks, Jean. I basically have one question, but again, it was a terrific presentation, especially at this early point in the budget. But to me, the most complicated area is the special education part of the budget. And, you know, we have the $1 million fund. When you use those numbers in the budget, you're saying it's flat, but that's essentially, because is meant to soften the blow for the circuit, you know, the change in circuit breaker so we can catch up. Is when you calculate in the budget, are you saying that part of that $1 million is how is that incorporated into the budget itself? Or because that's kind of that's the fund, a revenue source. I just clarify that.
No,
Once again, every year I probably ask the same question, but
And that's fine. So what we have basically is the total out-of-district tuition amount. What is in the operating is being offset by the circuit breaker. So the increase in circuit breaker brought down the out-of-district tuitions within the general fund. But the total amount of out-of-district tuitions still includes that $1 million need for that reserve.
okay.
Does that make sense? So the increase in the circuit breaker went to the general fund piece of the operating budget and not to the reserve fund.
Okay. Thank you. That's it for me.
That's great.
May I
Please.
May I follow up on that question? Since we are discussing the reserve fund, it may be helpful to share with the boards as well as the public how that reserve fund is tracking this year.
So right now, we are still looking at fully spending all of our out-of-district tuitions. Things change. Even just before we were going to present tonight, they wanted to increase what's in the operating budget for '25 for a known student placement. But I told them it was too late. So things are always changing. So as the year goes on, it will continue to change. So we are tracking still to fully spend it.
Thank you.
Thank you. It's school committee members. I know there have been a few changes. I appreciate the effort that went into this presentation and to trying to bring into alignment all the numbers that we have. So are there questions or comments? I know we've seen a lot of budget stuff over the past few weeks, but this is new.
I mean, first of all, congratulations, it's fantastic information. You know, I think it's great to see the emphasis that we place on the special education. There's some great questions out of the select board around special education. You know, and I think that's really a group that, you know, as the population of the town grows, that we're seeing more and more of the special ed need in the town. So to see that emphasis placed on it within the budget, I think it's fantastic.
Amanda?
I just want to thank you for obviously the great presentation. Also, this is our first time seeing the numbers come together, so it is definitely a lot to take in, and we'll have more iterations. But I really appreciate the thoughtful way that you evaluated opportunities to reduce, which is never a pleasant topic, especially when it involves positions. And I know that was very, a lot of work went into figuring out true need and asking just for what we really need. So I do appreciate that. This is the first time we've also heard about the reductions that you outlaid, Dr. Kavanaugh, in your presentation. They seem to make a lot of sense. Certainly if our ESOL student population is declining, not the population isn't declining, but the needs are not at the same level, it makes sense to staff to the need, and I appreciate that. I also really appreciated your comment around how the 2 new director positions in special education will help with some of the SEL maintenance, the maintenance, I think you called it, but the steady state that we're now in, having built and implemented so many programs, having those positions, for me, it's sort of seeing their role come into play. We voted those last year, so just thank you for that, and we will be, I'll be going through your presentation. I don't think we actually have it.
No.
Do we?
I don't.
Yet, so.
Okay, that would be great.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
I'll be digging in, we'll be having meetings next week.
it first?
You had it
Yes.
first.
Yes, you're sitting there with those lovely packets, and we're like trying to read the screen.
Yeah. So,
Just so you also know, 6 copiers happened to. We had a lot of conversation about copiers.
Thank you, we talked a lot about copiers.
Yeah.
so I echo what I think almost everybody, if not everybody, has said before, which is this is an outstanding presentation. For me, a couple of things jumped out. I think really the explanation of the shifting needs and trying to staff to where we need things most. I appreciate that. The other piece that was, I think I didn't quite grasp in the earlier budget presentations was how the assistant principal position at Hopkins really is in the service of students in different ways, talking about the bullying investigations and how that
really
impacts
was-
adjustment counselors' availability to our students. I think that there are pieces of those positions that those of us who are not in school administration maybe don't appreciate all of the nitty-gritty details of the job. So very much appreciate that. I don't have any questions at this point. The copiers, I do appreciate the thought on that as well. I know, we had a lot of discussion about, was it last week we discussed copiers? And I know that there are needs to make sure that our copiers we have enough functional copiers in all of our buildings and that they're aging, but the look back to see where we could delay some of it, I think is helpful for this year's operational budget. So that is it for this piece. Anybody else have any comments from Select Board Appropriations before we close this portion of the budget piece?
No, I think that, well, I always say no and then I make my comment. I'm sorry about that. Yeah, I do that consistently. No, I don't think so. Oh, but one more thing. I think it'll be important for us as we go forward with all departments to sort of prioritize where we are on the gap, right? Where we are on the overage and how, depending on how all the numbers come together, how you're thinking about that difference and how you'll address it if we really get rubber meets the road and we don't have as many options as we always hope we'll have.
I always hope for lots of options.
Yeah.
I also, I think for looking at, although we haven't had this full budget together, it's a good bit lower, I would say, than where it would have been if we'd added it all together a week ago. Is that?
Oh, that's very fair to say, yes. We truly have done a lot of whittling.
Yeah, and I want to say, I didn't say it going through, but I really noticed that discussion about your the way you're using and identifying your ongoing needs and so forth, and I really appreciate that as well. I think it's really important information for not just us, but for people to see the work that goes into those processes.
Yeah, and I just want to add that this is great progress. We are on December 14th. It feels like we're almost very close. So great work. Yeah, let's reach the finish line soon enough.
And thank you again for bringing forward the idea to bring us all together here at this point rather than in the new year. So.
Thank you. Thanks for everyone's time and coming together.
All right, so we're going to keep the select board here because the next item on our agenda is the school committee appointed position. Thank you to everybody who tuned in for the budget piece and more to come on that. So in terms of the school committee appointment, we have not had the opportunity to discuss process. And I think the piece for people at home that appreciate open meeting laws that we don't have the opportunity to have these discussions as a large group, except when we're here in a posted
In open
meeting.
meeting law, the open meeting, right?
You know, I did see a couple of ideas that have been thrown out there for how this is done. I know you guys have done it in different ways for when you have done joint appointments with other boards,
Yeah, I'll just throw it out. I think very consistently, we typically, and if I'm wrong, somebody can tell me, I typically defer to the chair of the meeting where we are. So if it's at my meeting, usually I would chair it, and then we did the planning board a couple weeks ago, and Gary chaired it. So if you're comfortable chairing, that's sort of
absolutely
feels right to me. And then the only thing that I think of in terms of process is every candidate having the opportunity to answer the same questions, if that makes sense, right? If there are questions that apply to all the candidates, everybody should have the opportunity to answer them. And then
We've been advised by HR that that's the.
all right. Well, it's not only nice to do, it's advisable. Illegal. HR likes that process as well. And then we have a runoff process that we use where we have so many candidates. If we don't have a candidate that has a majority of the votes that is actually a majority of the voting members, we usually do a runoff. So the candidate we ultimately select would have a majority of the votes of the appointing committee, which in this case is the school committee and the select board. So if we had somebody that had 3 votes, but they were the winner, we would take the top 2 and have a runoff vote. I think that's how the process is. So that's really what we typically have as process, if that works. But I'm also open to other thoughts.
Appreciate that. The runoff procedure, I think is perhaps when we have a large group, we have 5 candidates for those who are tuning in from home, which is exciting to have that much interest in the school committee, and people wanting to serve. But it is good to have I think a procedure. I like this procedure personally, but I would like to hear from other school committee members in terms of the process of inviting people up to speak for, I don't know, say 2 minutes. Is that sound about right?
Yeah.
And then we'll ask the same questions of each of the candidates. So whatever we ask the first candidate, we'll follow through for all of the candidates. And then at the end, getting to the runoff voting procedure, looking to, I think the basic way that I would sum it up, and correct me if I'm wrong, would be kind of taking a poll of where people would want to, who they would want to select. And then if we have 2 people who are in sort of the high, it's not really a vote at that point, but the highest number of people wanting to vote from them, they don't have a clear majority, then bringing it down to the 2, the top 2.
Yeah.
That makes sense to me.
I hope that's clear to everybody, yeah. Yeah, just so that the ultimate appointee has a majority of the appointing committee's vote is really the goal.
Right.
I like it. Yeah, I think it sounds good.
Okay.
I like it.
Susan and Adam, good? And everybody on the select board is good with that?
Sounds good.
Irfan, you okay with that?
Yep, I'm good with it.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, so have people had the opportunity to review the materials that we have?
Yes.
All right, so I think probably the fairest way to just would be to go in alphabetical order.
Perfect.
Makes sense, so I would.
Do we have people on Zoom?
We do have, I know that one candidate had expressed interest in being on Zoom. Do you see people in the Zoom who?
The non-elected officials on the Zoom right now are Darlene Hayes and Jim Cousins.
So we do not have Chris Masters, who I did send the Zoom link to. He's not on just yet, but he may join in as we go through.
Yeah, we're past the point where,
You're right, we're past the start of where we're 8:15, and I did email or reach out to each of the 5 applicants to let them know.
Great.
That this was happening tonight, and that I anticipated 8:15, because that's what it was on the agenda. I always like to, we're not bad. All right, so I would like to invite Ashley, just because the F is the beginning of the alphabet, to come up and take a couple minutes to Yeah. Oh. Great. Welcome.
Thank you. You know, can I ask this question?
Yes.
Should we have people bring chairs up? Because if we ask questions, they're all going to speak.
All right, so
I think-
I think when they're speaking, they need to make sure they're into a microphone is the only
So
thing.
we'll have to cycle through.
So why don't we cycle through before we get to questions, let everybody introduce themselves, and then, I don't think there's a better way to get.
A couple of us can stand up and they could sit at, I mean, I can stand and somebody could sit.
Or we could
to
bring
speak.
folding chairs.
Or each can might have a mic.
Is it maybe a handheld mic? Something, we'll figure it
All
out.
right, so Dr. Kavanaugh has offered that we could use these 3 seats along here to allow.
That's really perfect. Thank you so much for that.
Everybody to come up at the same time. Yeah,
I know, we're playing musical chairs. I'm not surprised you wonder.
Yeah, I can go here next to Mary Jo.
You can sit next to me.
Gentlemen, time.
So, yes, so Amanda is going to time, Chris Masters is not going to be able to be here. Something he had to take care of that was emergent.
Nancy, I prepared a 3-minute thing because it said 2 to 3 minutes on whatever I read. So is 3 minutes okay?
Perfect. That, I think we'll give 3 minutes to everybody, though.
Okay, sounds good.
Yeah, thank you for highlighting that to my attention. Anyway. Do we want, do the rest of the candidates who are here in person want to come up and sit at the
It'll
table
just
so
be
it make
more
it smoother
efficient and
efficiently?
part of the fun and.
You sink low.
The room can see. I'm not very tall.
I don't ever feel that way. Okay. So you want, is this like town meeting? Do I need to say my name and address, or do I just?
Your name is good.
Well, I'm Ashley Fogg, and I say that later in my spiel. But good evening, Select Board and School Committee members. Thank you for setting time aside tonight to make this very important decision to fill the vacancy in the Hopkinton School Committee. And Muriel, I'm very happy to see you here as well.
Happy to be seen, Ashley.
Yeah. As I am sure you are all aware, and we've seen tonight with the budget presentation, filling this position is vitally important, especially as it concerns the budget discussion and decisions of the Hopkinton Public Schools that will be made in the coming months. I believe everyone in this room knows me as Ashley Fogg and knows my background. I am a lifelong resident of Hopkinton, only leaving to attend college before returning in 2018 to raise my family. I attended the Hopkinton Public Schools and now have my 3 children in each of the elementary schools. I'm heavily involved in the community as an HPTO executive board member and other various volunteer roles at the Hopkins, Marathon, and Elmwood schools. I'm currently coaching 3 basketball programs with the Hopkinton Basketball Association, and our family has served extensively with the Hopkinton Youth Soccer Program for many years. And we're always looking for new ways to volunteer and give back to Hopkinton. But most importantly, I cannot stress enough to each one of you that I am still committed to serving as a school committee member. I hope this is clearly evidenced by the very intense campaigns and candidacies I have had the past 2 years. It's no secret that this past spring's campaign was incredibly difficult for not only myself, but for my family. The cost of what my family paid and endured because I tried to serve was exceedingly great. However, I truly hope by being here tonight, I am clearly demonstrating I still have the courage to show up, and I still have an unwavering commitment and resolve to serve on the school committee. I care deeply not just about the Hopkinton Public Schools, but the students and staff that fill them. I care deeply about Hopkinton. I have a personal investment in the schools because of the 3 Hopkinton students in my own home. The policies, the decisions, and programs that are decided by the school committee trickle down to my children and affect our family daily. I'm thoroughly invested in help shaping those decisions, programs, and policies to work well for not only my students in my home, but for all students in Hopkinton. I do watch most school committee meetings via HCAM, and I stay apprised of what decisions are being made. I have many personal relationships with the administration, principals, and teachers, not only through my heavy volunteer work, but I am currently working as a part-time substitute teacher at the schools, a position I would resign should I be appointed. But this position has allowed me to have both the parent lens and the teacher lens when it comes to the perspective of the Hopkinton Public Schools. Growing up in Hopkinton, I provide a unique perspective on remembering when this town was a small farm town with just one light at Colella's, to the commuter rail coming into town and EMC, and now what it is today. It's been really awesome, but sometimes also a challenge to see the changes Hopkinton has made. But I have an immense amount of pride for this town, and I would work to the best of my ability with the other school committee members and Dr. Kavanaugh to make the decisions that would serve the students and the staff of Hopkinton Public Schools the best. One additional point, and then I'll move on. I do think our school committee is best served when we have differing points of views and opinions. I think we can all acknowledge we work best when we learn and therefore grow from others' experiences. I know I learn and grow the most when I'm able to hear from other people.
Okay, so Chris Masters is, as I said, not here. I don't see Karen Mullick online. Do you see her in the waiting room? Okay, so she is another one of the 5 candidates.
I was going to ask.
I'm going to turn that to you, Lori, if you want to introduce yourself.
Thought I had more time. Good evening, everybody. Nice to see everybody in person. My name is Lori Nickerson. I have been a resident of Hopkinton for 11 years. I served on the school committee from 2014 to 2017, and I was chair for the last year of my tenure. I had decided at the time not to run for another term simply because I had a child who was actually undergoing some difficulties from special needs perspective, and I now actually have 2 children that are part of the special education programs in our buildings. So I have 3 children in the school, 1 in the high school and middle school, and 1 at Hopkins. When I started on the committee, I had 2 in the schools and 1 who was about to start as the first kindergarten class at Marathon Elementary, and I was on the committee during the time that we were building that school. So I have extensive experience with that piece of the budget and the process of the town as well. As part of the committee, the thing that I believe most parents don't understand about what the school committee's charge is that there are 3 facets. One being the budget, one being the oversight and supervision of the superintendent, and one being the educational programming and looking at the educational program in the schools. I joined the school committee not knowing anything about any of those 3. And it's a large change to move in from private industry and working in public companies and private companies like I currently do, to moving into government process, government budgeting, and education. My interest in this interim role was strictly to be a voice of experience from doing it in the past and knowing how difficult the budget process is during this time period and being able to help usher through that piece of the work that's so vital to the town because of how important the school budgets are to the town and to the residents. So at this time, I mean, it really certainly was not something that I had on my lens to do, but because of my 3 children and how important the school district is to this town, I thought it was worthwhile to throw my hat out there with the experience that I have and hope to present that in a helping hand to the town for this short interim period. So I thank you for the opportunity to speak with you all, and I look forward to answering any questions you have. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, Jamie.
Hi. Thanks for having me here. I am honored to be among such a dedicated group of applicants. I really appreciate everyone's experience and points of view. We all see the value and importance of the school committee. I want this appointment because I have a deeply vested interest in our schools. I have 3 young children, 2 at Marathon, 1 at Elmwood, and one of my children is on an IEP. My children will be in the school system for 12 plus years from now. I've been involved in supporting the public schools since the summer before my oldest started at Marathon in kindergarten as the executive board secretary of the PTO. I currently serve as the Elmwood VP and the VP of membership on the executive board. I also volunteer with CPAC, and I've been vice chair for a little under a year now. I'm familiar with the role of school committee and the items that come before the board. Based on my nearly 10 years of volunteering on various town committees, I'm also aware of the time commitment involved and how important it is to show up and review all the materials. Professionally, I'm an occupational therapist, and now I teach at Worcester State University, so I'm both an educator and a clinician. And I'd be interested in helping serve. I'm also planning on running in May, and so if you were to choose me, I'd be happy to run and earn the votes of the voters in town and continue the job, if the voters chose me. Thank you for your service to our town and consideration.
Thank you. Okay, so that's, thank you all three of you for introducing yourselves. Just in terms of the other two candidates, I know that we do have their applications in, I think, more extensively in the select board packet because one of them did not make our cut.
Yikes.
Cut up. That's okay, but they are in the select board packet.
Yeah, I definitely.
And we,
Yep.
have access to those.
Yep.
But for people at home who would like to review them, that's probably the most up-to-date place to see them.
I will just say that traditionally, it is very hard to compete with people who are able to get to the meetings and introduce themselves. And I guess this is the right time to say, too, we were so fortunate to have 5 excellent candidates. That doesn't always happen, and it always means that there are, several people who don't get the position. We say this all the time, but we mean it. If you're interested in serving and finding a place, definitely keep looking, because we want all the volunteers that step forward to find their niche and find their spot, and there's only one spot here tonight. So anyway, that's my little spiel. We're really lucky to have a hard choice.
I would agree with that. I would agree. Are there people that have questions that they would like to ask of the candidates, that they have questions prepared for?
Go ahead, Mary Jo.
Well, I wanted to ask all of the candidates if they were thinking of giving full consideration to running for the position when it's up, or are they just interested in keeping, coordinating it and getting us through this year? Or would they run for the 5-year seat?
3-year.
3-year seat, I'm sorry.
That's okay. I don't want to scare anybody by saying.
5 years becomes a sentence.
That's okay. That's okay. Do you want to start, Ashley, do you mind starting at your end of the table over there?
Sure. So yeah, I think there's definitely an advantage of coming in at this appointed seat and then becoming the incumbent in an election. So there's definitely that advantage. It would be something, if I'm totally honest with you, that I'd have to approach with my family. Given my history with elections and the process that it's made, it's something that I would have to speak with my husband about. However, yes, it is definitely something I've considered, and I would be heavily probably in favor of running again should I be appointed.
So I too have been through the campaign process, so I fully understand your hesitation in making a determination right now. And so I would say that the determination has to be made by the end of March. I would need to assess where my family's needs and my career needs are. I'm a general counsel of a biotech company and have not extensive work travel that takes me away from town, but just extensive amount of work that I have to cover. So in March, I would make that decision finally. I certainly miss the committee, and it was even why I was considering being a part of it. I was at the special town election in November and missed the process, so I think it's a definite possibility, but I would never be one to guarantee you at this point in December what my decision-making is going to be in March with 3 active children and a very busy job.
Yes, my family and I have already discussed it, and it was something that was on our plans for this spring.
Jamie, I think when you first spoke, you didn't introduce yourself.
Oh, that's true.
Name and address, name and, for the public. I mean, we all know who you are, but for the camera and the public, you really should let them know who you are.
Thank you. Yes, my name is Jamie Vronka, and I've been in town since 2012. And yes, I would plan to run in the spring, regardless of the appointment.
Let me just grab Irfan. Irfan, do you have any questions?
Actually, that was my question.
Who is that woman?
I did have one. If
Go
no one
ahead,
else
Amy.
does.
Go ahead.
I wanted to hear from the candidates what they've done to prepare themselves for the role. You know, if they've taken any of the state trainings. There's the Massachusetts Association of School Committees training, or the state ethics training, or open meeting law trainings. So have they done any of those in advance? Or would they be doing them, be willing to do them if they were appointed?
Do you want to start with Jamie this time?
Yeah, sure. I think my ethics training is current from my Upper Charles Trail Committee seat. I believe we had an open meeting law, possibly. But yes, any training that was necessary, I would absolutely update and confirm that they were all intact.
So I'm familiar with all the training. I've done it in the past. I believe I would need to re-up it all, but I haven't re-upped it at this point. I was waiting to see what happened here, but I also have annual ethics training as an attorney for the state that I'm always having to update. So it's all very routine as far as I'm concerned. I'd be happy to do that.
I believe my ethics training is up to date. I did that last year, but as the other candidates have said, I'd be willing to do whatever training I need to do to be on the school committee.
So the MASC training, I believe, is going to be held in Hopkinton in January, coincidentally, which is very unusual. It is a day-long training.
Convenient. That never happens,
That does
by the
not.
way.
MASC had reached out to Dr. Kavanaugh and I to see if we would be willing to host. This is before the vacancy actually had opened up. And we had actually initially thought, well, it would be better if they held it in May, because we knew for sure, after annual town election, we would have candidates. So that is a convenient piece. I imagine you took the same training already the last time. I don't think it's changed at all.
No, and they do continue to send you, so once you're on the committee, they continue to send it to you year after year.
I have a couple of questions. So I have two questions, actually. One is very general. Some of you touched it on your intro commentary. What's your vision with our school? And given our budget and growth challenges, how do you see yourself leading into it and helping our school excel and continue to move forward?
Yeah, you might as well start with
So coming into the budget process at the stage that we're at right now, it's going to be important to get up to speed on what all the building presentations were and where their challenges are. I mean, I certainly know the challenges that are happening in the schools where I have children, but you aren't always as close to the other buildings that your children are not in. I think the growth piece is something that the school committee is not able to control. That's actually for the select board, the planning board, and other boards in the town to work on. The schools are often the recipients of that growth and are forced to make creative choices on how they're going to move forward with the budget that they're given. Every year, the select board provides a number. Every year, we come back with a number, and they never match. And so they always have the push and pull that has to happen for the next few months to get to the place that's going to get the school district and the town in the right spot to move forward and have a successful town meeting in May. But the most important part of that is understanding what the impact of the decisions are that you make this year to the future years. And I think when I heard some of the questions today about special ed, it's also educating people on the mandates that come with much of the budget for the schools that they have no control over. You have no control over how many students move into your town that have special ed needs. You have no control over how much state aid that you get. But yet you have mandates on serving those students. There is never a case, ever, that you will find a parent looking to get special education services because it sounds like it's going to be helpful for their kids. I was the CPAC liaison when I was on the board Those parents are exhausted. They're fighting every day for their students. So it's the job of the school committee to look at every student in the district, not just special ed needs students and not just regular education students. But there are certain portions of that population that we just have no control over. And so it's really important to understand all of those mandates that are on the committee to make decisions about the budget, and also educate the other boards that are making decisions about the budget so that they know why the numbers are where they are and how much flexibility that they have. And I think it's really also important to educate the town, because they look at the school budget as growing every year, but they don't necessarily understand what's driving it. And so those are the pieces that I think are vitally important in taking on a role like this, because you're not only making decisions, but you need to be the messenger to the rest of the town as to why and how this process works, because most people don't take the time to watch the meetings. They don't take the time to understand the process, and that's what's important.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Will you repeat the question? I was listening to her answer.
Yeah. What's your
Sure,
vision?
back in place.
Yeah, just in general, what's your vision, and given our budget and growth challenges, how do you pursue towards it?
Yeah, so I think, echo a lot of what Lori said. I think the town piece is really important. I think seeing last year and seeing what happened with the budget, with the teachers, with the special education concerns, and just people really feeling unheard that from various different ways. I think it would be my hope that we would never get to that kind of point again, that we would be, I think we all learned a lot. I think you guys have learned a lot, and trying to maybe open up more forums. And I know Nancy mentioned some public things, and just trying to hear what they think about the agenda from the, not the agenda, the budget, the teachers. I think that's really important. I think growth-wise also, I think the school committee really has to think about, and I think we do have to be creative with our policies and things. I know my 3 children, I've seen the growth and how it's impacted. My kindergartner was in a music room until about 3 weeks ago when he finally got to move into the addition at Marathon. And so he had a very loud classroom for about 3 hours of the day, because the music room at Marathon is really a glorified stage with a wall. I have, not my son, but my son has friends in Hopkins that have no windows in their room for the entire day. And I think the teachers are amazing and creative, and Dr. Kavanaugh has done a really good job with that. But there are growth concerns, and it's something that is really the forefront of what we really need to be thinking about, and just moving forward. Elmwood is going to help. It's going to make a huge difference, but we also have to get everybody on board for the Hopkins addition too. And there are a lot of people that are not on board with that. And Hopkins is going to make Elmwood possible. So I just think further education in the town and growth is really the big deal, and getting the town on board and understanding why and what we need.
Thank
you. I see Hopkinton Public Schools as a really special place. I really appreciate, more so now that my child who's on an IEP is in kindergarten, just how valuable and important inclusive settings are, which is something I've been excited to follow, along with the board of CPAC, all the co-teaching and ways to integrate our classrooms more effectively. I think it's incredibly valuable, and having high-achieving academic students alongside their peers who may struggle some because of other challenges, I think is incredibly valuable for some learning opportunities. And then focusing our instructional capabilities from our incredible staff to support those learners in every direction that they need to grow. And so that's a balancing act that our school system does incredibly well. And it's why we have such a growth problem, because families want to move here. We wanted to move here 12 years ago from Cambridge for the schools before having children. So it's an exciting place to live, and it's an exciting place to have our kids go to school. I was involved with the Elmwood School Building Committee Support Group, helping get the word out and help people understand why it was so important. And so I agree, the communication needs to be clear and concise and then shared widely by other stakeholders who are really involved. I've also served older adult patients in Hopkinton when I worked for a visiting nurse association. I understand the concerns, and I do think that when you are able to speak to people on their terms, everyone's really on board with educating our children the high quality way that we do in this town.
Thank you. I have another question, but I can wait. The second one is, it's actually very, heartening to see how our town is evolving, our school has evolved, and my son went, now he's a senior or final year in college. So when he was in school versus my daughter, who's now just starting high school, the diversity is just exploded. And it's heartening to see how, the whole town is embracing it, the schools are embracing it, and we are taking advantage of the strength. So my question is, how do you see this opportunity, and what would you do anew or differently than what would be in my son's time? Does that make sense, the question? Yes?
Makes sense to me, Shahadul. I love the question.
Thank you.
Go ahead.
I think diversity is awesome. As being in the schools, it's awesome to see what the classrooms look like versus when I even was in Hopkinton. It was not very diverse. And so I think that's really cool. My kids have conversations with friends and learn about things that our family doesn't do. And it's really cool that they are exposed to a lot of those different things. I think it makes us better people and a stronger community when we can embrace diversity. I do think, though, that there have been events or policies or things that have been taken away to try to be inclusive and try to not make people feel, oh, we're going one way or another, whether it be teaching about different holidays or different cultures and just kind of taking that away, where I feel like we should just be adding it all in. I feel like we should be teaching everything. If we're going to teach about one thing, let's teach about another. And I think that's a more inclusive approach than taking something away so that somebody else doesn't feel like we're not including their part. Like, let's teach all of it. Just as a example just because we're in the holiday season, let's teach about all the holidays. Let's teach about Hanukkah. Let's teach about Kwanzaa. Let's teach about Christmas. And we don't need to go into a deep dive into all of them, but we should be including them rather than just, maybe being a straight line of saying just happy holidays. And that's fine, but I think that would be more inclusive and it would feel like we're teaching everything. And so that's how I would handle more diversity.
Thank you.
Me.
I grew up in New Jersey in a school that was very diverse. The whole town was. And so it's been really wonderful, I agree, to see the diversity in my daughter and my son's classes. I think that how we embrace it and what we do to move forward to celebrate that and support kids of all different backgrounds is something that we need to. The school committee's role in that is somewhat limited by policies, and we have some amazing teachers and leaders in our system who would have, I assume, wonderful ideas and suggestions. Anything that I would propose, I'd want to have evidence to back it up. I work at a college. Evidence-based practice is important both clinically and in the classroom for me. I'm sure that our teachers agree with that, and so any new directions, I would absolutely want to support it, and I'd want to have some evidence to back up why we're making those choices and how that is known to support kids of different backgrounds.
Thank you.
I don't know that there are any decisions that the school committee's made that has negatively impacted diversity in the district. I think one of the areas that was a hot topic while I was on the committee and was recently a hot topic is the school calendar. And there's no right answer in that, because you're either dealing with the fact that you have strict timelines in which when you can have school throughout the year, and we live in the Northeast and we have snow days to deal with, or you're inevitably leaving out some group that's underrepresented in your community. I do agree with Ashley that there's been a lot of takeaways and not necessarily great explanation behind them, and I don't know if they're always diversity related or not. I think the one that I miss the most, and I don't even have a child that's going to be coming up through the school, is Marathon Day in Elmwood, which was one of the most phenomenal programs that my 2 older children got to experience, but my youngest did not, because COVID hit when she was in 2nd and 3rd grade and it was gone. So I think exploring as a committee some of the programming that has changed during COVID and then never was brought back, and looking at also what we are doing as an administration and a committee to encourage more diversity in the staff, because I think the students thrive when they see the diversity around them also from who they're being taught. And so, and even this year was amazing. In my daughter's high school, they had brought in a Spanish teacher who was from Bolivia, and actually English was her second language. And so having the kids have to experience what she experienced growing up, and her explaining her experience, made it easier for them to learn the language. So really exploring the staffing decisions and how much diversity we can bring into the community within the buildings through that.
Thank you.
I am good.
You're
Thank
good?
you. Yeah, no.
Okay. Amy, okay, so I'll turn then to the school committee. If the school committee has questions they'd like to have asked.
Sure. My question would be for each of you. What is your vision of the school committee direction during your tenure?
You mean for the
What is the
between now
vision
and
between now and May? What, how do you, or beyond, what is your, where do you want to see the school committee go?
I lost track of who started that.
I think I'm supposed to start.
Okay, thank you.
Come on, Nancy.
Although it's easier when you're not, because you get a little bit of time to think. But I mean, it's a short tenure. I think my vision for the tenure of this particular role is to be as effective as possible in creating unanimity between the select board, the school committee, and the appropriations committee through the budget process. That's not always been the case in the past. And we all live in the same community, and yet we're all working towards similar goals, but may have different opinions. And so I think creating a process, which today, seeing everybody meet before Christmas on a budget process was amazing, and start to have those discussions now. So for me, it's really creating that joint work together versus one group working against another, and really trying to come up with the outcome that's going to be both the best for the students and the best for the committee.
Thank you.
I think a lot of what Lori said. I think the budget obviously is going to be our big meat of our meetings, and I think it's really important as a school committee member that we are a representative of the town and the schools, and I think that being really transparent, really concise, opening up opportunities for the public to speak about the budget, I think would be really important to me and to my role. I think having really good communication with other school committee members and obviously the bridging the gaps between the select board and the appropriations committee, like Lori said, I think it just really needs to be a well-oiled machine, and we need to be really transparent with our process.
In the short time between now and the election, I there's not much else to say other than supporting the process of the budget, working with the school committee members that are in the seats. And I think for me, as a special education parent, I am particularly interested and invested in the special education budget. I was fortunate to be on the hiring committee for Abby Hanscom, and seeing the direction that we're going to support our students with different learning needs is really wonderful. And so continuing to educate the community on why that's so important and what goes into that, I would see as something that I would bring to the table.
Thank you very much.
Susan, do you have anything? Amanda?
I'm good. I think this is like an abundance of riches. So the fact that we have essentially a 5-month position and 5 people came forward, I just feel blessed. And, the 3 strong candidates that are here, I'm really excited, particularly because my term is up in May. So I'm just saying, no matter what happens here, I hope that you all will come forward, because it would really make for a great election, and you all seem very qualified. But I don't have any questions at this point.
I also do not have any questions, but I do so appreciate the 3 of you coming up and opening yourself up to answer the questions that were here and to introduce yourself. I also appreciate the 2 candidates who are not here, who submitted their information. I know ironically, I think people think about the elections that we go through and how difficult those are. This would seem like it would have been a less complicated process, but we are lucky to have 5 strong candidates. And love that, we're going to be headed towards the election in May. It sounds like we're going to have people ready to step up and run, interested in that. So do we want to have a little bit of discussion first, and just in terms of if people want to express thoughts amongst the, 9 of us? Well, that would be
Yeah.
So if you guys want to go back and sit down, if you don't want to.
Sit right next to
All right, so just kind of to circle back to the process, we are going to look to take a straw poll of where people stand, but I would love to have a little bit of conversation on what people's thoughts are priority-wise for what we're looking at in this 5-month interim position.
Do you want to start us?
I would love to start. So the 2 things that are big to me, and I know obviously we deal with lots of things that are not anticipated on the school committee. Obviously the operational budget, the capital budget, but also we're looking at the part of the capital budget, the Hopkins, proposed Hopkins addition. That's going to require, lots of commitment from the committee, lots of ability to delve in, to have knowledge of what's going on with building projects. I do think that we've been through a number just over the past few years, kind of looking back to when we were building Marathon and that process, the additions at the high school, and then Marathon again, and then obviously the Elmwood process. But the Hopkins process specifically is going to require a lot of attention between now and May.
And beyond.
And beyond, but just in terms of fine-tuning that to get it ready to go to town meeting in May. Obviously, there are other capital projects on our plan, but those are 2 strong priorities for me.
Yeah, I think for me, because we are in flight with this year, we're in the middle of, not really quite in the middle, but or deep in budget season. I echo everything that Nancy said. I think it's important that we have somebody who can, for this particular 5 months, add to the process sort of out of the gate, because we don't have that much time for on-ramping. The other component of the job in the next 5 months that hasn't really been discussed is the superintendent evaluation and overseeing the superintendent. And the formative evaluation for Dr. Kavanaugh will be in January, probably-ish, end of January. That's our mid-year check-in. And then the end-of-year review is sort of essential. That's 1/3 of what we do. So that is a very unique, I think, having come from the private sector to education, a very unique process that takes a few cycles to learn. But I think it is important for this role that we get somebody who is going to be able to fit in pretty easily. That's a priority for me, just because we're already in flight. The other thing I didn't mention that for me personally, I know we're not actually saying who we prefer, but we are appointing somebody on behalf of the community, which is a big responsibility because typically we are voted by the community. So we are fortunate that there is one person who has been voted on to the committee before by the community, and I think that is something for me to consider because we are representing the town. So throwing that out there.
Susan?
No.
Priorities? Adam?
I think for me, a big thing is just the commitment to transparency, the commitment to teamwork and collaboration, and making sure that this committee is able to function congruently with the other committees. So that's teamwork and collaboration for me.
I think I have to echo what Amanda said, is that the sense of hit the ground running, because it is such a learning curve, and I know that Adam and I are both in process, and I find that to be very important to me.
I do want to circle back to what Amanda had said about the evaluation of the superintendent. I did not intentionally omit that from my comments, but that is a really big piece, and it is, I think the first time going through it, it is a complicated process. It happens very much in public, in fact, exclusively in public, but it requires a lot of individual school committee member dedication to the process and then coming together as a whole. And that is the oversight of the superintendent is one of the three things that we do by statute. So that is a big piece. There are other?
Okay, on to me. So I think that I have been through this process a number of times over the last 20 years. I always hope for a candidate to fill in and I often seek folks in the community that have left a position to fill in for a remaining term. I'm pretty consistent on that. I also had, I'll be really candid, when I saw that Lori had put her name in, I knew where I stood because I watched Lori work at a very contentious, difficult, very busy time. I'll also say that, candidly, this committee has the biggest lift in this town. It's a huge workload, and to know what you're getting into and to be able to start day one, I think is really important. So I guess we weren't supposed to say, sorry, I broke the rules, there I go. But I really appreciate all three candidates that five candidates put their names forward, the three that showed up. We'd be lucky to be served by anybody on that list. So.
I don't think I have anything at the moment.
Should I do?
Yeah, just in general, I certainly want to thank all the candidates for stepping forward. Everyone did a wonderful job with the discussion and the questions, so certainly feel lucky. And you just made our job harder. So thank you for that. But we do have to, carry on, and we unfortunately have to choose one over out of five and over the three that we have listened to today. And I am seeing that everyone has wonderful background, engagement, and again, I mean, great candidates. I'm kind of looking at two aspects. One is that I do realize the readiness and immediate aspect, immediate jumping in, hitting the ground running. I do also think that the long-term path is kind of a responsibility for us to look at, like how do we ensure the continuity, and this actually gives a good opportunity to learn from the fire and then be prepared. So I was looking for the commitment for continuity with the upcoming election as well. And the second thing also I'm thinking is we also heard in today's budget meeting that we have a big part of our student population, 614, which is more than 15% heading north on the SPED students population. And I think, the growth budget and everything that's happening, it is going to be very helpful to add a voice from that population representation. adding, fresh perspective and specific understanding and how we can best serve, across the board. So those are, thoughts kind of I'm looking at a little bit in choosing the final candidate. But again, it's very hard. Please, stay connected, stay engaged, and stay interested, and help us with the town. The town runs on the volunteer. That's the beauty of our town, and you all have done a wonderful job in the past in helping us in many ways. Please continue to do so, regardless of who gets the nomination tonight.
Mary Jo.
Well, I can honestly say, having read all the applications and everything, that not having two people here tonight is kind of too difficult to make a decision, including them. So, but, so my mind is on the three people that were here tonight. And what a group we have to choose from. It's going to be a very difficult decision. There is a lot to be said during the budget time and from now to May for someone with the past experience of the school committee and hitting the ground running. But there's also, the other candidates thinking that they want to run for the full position. And I certainly have a lot of respect for that and would like to see them continue to, and put their name out there. These are just great candidates, and it's going to be a very difficult decision.
Thank you. Irfan.
Yeah, kind of echoing a lot of what everyone said, but as Muriel said, this is a very heavy lift. We do want to hit the ground running, and it's a serious time commitment. And so the continuity, so having somebody who is going to put in that kind of time and then want to keep going I think is something I care about. To know that we'll have somebody who's hit the ground running, gets up to speed, and then continues on in that role.
Thank you. So a couple themes that I heard. One is special education. I do think it's notable that at least 3 of the people who have applied for the position have personal experience with special education, and I agree that's a huge benefit because we want to make sure that we're able to represent all of our students. In terms of the running for May, the experience is a big thing to me. I did hear, and we don't have the opportunity to hear from the 2 candidates at home where they stand on it. It certainly sounds like of the 3, none of them have said they would not run. So that is I think a good thing. But I think for me, the experience to be able to hit the ground running when we're in some really particularly heavy lift parts of the school committee job. I think we run in cycles, probably much the way all of the boards and committees. Our busiest time is really the next couple of months. So that's where I would be with that. Do we want to express start with the school committee in terms of where people stand in terms of the straw poll? Is that, or does it matter?
Taking on board the
it does
priorities
not.
of the.
Yep, that's, and again, I think that we are so fortunate to have 5 really strong candidates, 3 of whom showed up here. I would be excited to see people, not just in the interim, but that are able to make, show up in May and want to continue to be part of it, if that's the path that works. But this period is critical.
Well, I can start if you want.
Okay, that would be great.
I'm thinking, as I said, I'm thinking about this as the 5-month gap. I will restate that there will be 2 openings in May, and would would love to have a contested election and have the 3 candidates we heard tonight. I don't know very well any of the candidates really well, but familiar with several. But I would love to have 5 candidates running in May. It would be fabulous. So with the lens of the 5 months, and I don't know Lori, but I do value that the town elected her, and she has served in this role and knows how to do the job. I think a lot of what I learned in my first year, and I don't know how you guys feel closer to your first year, but a lot of what I learned in my first year was around the boundaries of the job. What I thought I was coming in to do and then what I was actually doing. And so, I really am looking for a 5th voice that can sort of already come in and know that. And that's a lot to know. It's a lot to learn. And it's easy to do when you have 3 years. It's a lot harder to do when you have 5 months. So I think I'd go with Lori for that reason.
Yeah, I'm looking at it through a different lens. I'm looking at it through a longevity and sustainability, where if we look at what's going to happen, maybe we're already going to have an empty position. I think this is an opportunity to instill somebody that's going to be able to. Yes, it'll be a heavy lift to get on board with all the activity that the committee's got to do, but I also think it's an opportunity to grow and expand during that 5-month period, so that when we come to May and we have open slots, that we're not trying to get those slots filled and then start to bring them up to speed again. So yeah, pay me now, pay me later as far as the learning curve goes. So, and again, it's all great candidates. But I mean, I think that, given the background, that I would opt to see Jamie in the position.
I think that we particularly need the experience that Lori brings. Given that Adam and I are new to the board, she has been through the budgetary process before. And I personally would feel much comfort in the fact that we had someone who's been here. Not to mention, I guess, I don't know, I think I would like to go the safest course.
Okay, so I think all great points. I have an additional lens, which is that in the first year that I served on the school committee, Lori was the chair. I also appreciate the part, I think it was Ashley had talked about having different opinions represented on the board. I think I can safely say that I have had disagreements with probably all of the candidates to different, I think that case is well represented, no matter who we choose. I do really like the opportunity to have somebody who's able to jump in on some of our biggest things, which is somebody who has experience with a building committee, that Lori went through the marathon building process. She has experience with 3 budget cycles and with 3 evaluations of the superintendent, both the formative and the summative at the end. So I guess that technically makes 6. So my choice would be Lori as well, even though I do hope that candidates will come back in May that are not selected, whether it's whichever one. So I would.
Yeah, so I sort of showed my hand early. Sorry. I'm very consistent. I think that it's really helpful when you're mid-year for somebody, if you can find somebody that has previous experience on the board. And I probably would have gone looking for somebody, but I had seen that Lori had jumped in. So that piece for me, she had done a really great job when she was here. And I think everybody said all the reasons, but I will say that it is not easy to put your name forward. It is not easy to put yourself out there, and I appreciate everybody that does. And I really hope you keep doing it, and you put your we find a way to put your talents to use in town, because we need all of that energy and all the folks. But I would vote for Lori.
Thank you.
And my vote's going to go to Jamie Wonka. I've seen her work on other committees. I know she takes the rules and bylaws very seriously. And I've seen her really follow the budget season last year and as well as the Elmwood school process. And I do like that she's feels confident that she's going to run again in the spring.
Thank you.
Yeah, I'm also leaning towards Jamie Ronka. And I think the experience and hit the ground running question we answered, or I shed light to it before. I think this is a great time. I agree with Adam to have someone who is certain to run again. And I've also worked with Jamie in the past, and she's very collaborative, wonderful, and does bring fresh perspectives. So this would be a great opportunity to learn for the longer term, and fully appreciate Laurie's and Ashley's backgrounds and experience, and Laurie's contribution in the school committee and tremendous experience that she brings. Of course, it's a hard decision, but I think I'm also looking at the longer term commitment for running again and continuing the journey. So Jamie would be my choice.
Mary Jo?
Well, I like the fact that Ashley is a coach and she's close to the kids and brings a personality thing into it, and I do like that. I also like Jamie. She's a very, very good, articulate candidate, but in this heavy budget time when the town is really struggling with a number of financial issues, and not just the school issue, but I think for the 7 months to have somebody who can hit the ground running really will make a difference to the school committee and the town. So I would have to say I would go with Laurie.
Thank you. Irfan?
So I'd like to say, I'd be happy with any of the three candidates. It's a very hard decision. It's a good problem to have. I agree with everything that's been said. I think that continuity matters more in my mind. And someone who's definitely going to run again matters to me. So I would vote for Jamie.
Okay, so that is a very tight straw poll, but I do see that we have 5 people who have indicated by the straw poll that they would be interested in having Laurie appointed, and 4 who have expressed interest in Jamie, which brings us down to the process where if one candidate is preferred by a majority of all of the board committee members, so I would entertain a motion to appoint Laurie Nickerson to the position of school committee member for a term expiring at the next annual town meeting in May.
So moved.
Okay, motion by Muriel. Is there a second on that?
Second.
Second, and we'll do a voice vote.
Yes, we do a voice vote.
But Irfan's
I'm gonna
remote, so we have to do.
Yeah,
That's what I said.
we have to do it.
Yeah. So Irfan, do you want to start with your vote on the motion?
Yes, Irfan Nasrallah, yes.
Thank you. Mary Jo?
Mary Jo Lafreniere, yes.
Shaibu?
Yes.
Amy Roderbush, yes.
Muriel Kramer, yes.
Admiral, yes.
Susan Stevenson, yes.
Amanda Fargiano, yes.
Nancy Kavanaugh, yes. So that concludes the voting process. Thank you to all of the candidates. And Laurie Nickerson, welcome aboard.
I don't know whether it's sympathy or congratulations coming your way.
I sincerely hope that the other candidates will. There. See, one other thing. But so you can jump right in and be sworn in at your earliest convenience. We do have a meeting next Thursday at 7 o'clock, so no rest.
Merry Christmas.
No rest on that. So, thank you, everybody who tuned into this process issue. Thank you. And good night to all those who are tuning out at this point. But I do know that there's another item
One
on
more
the
piece
select
of
board.
business for the select
business.
board. So we have an item to consider for the Elmwood project scope and budget agreement. The select board will consider authorizing the chair to execute the project scope, budget agreement, and exhibits on behalf of the select board for the Elmwood Elementary School project. So the motion would be to authorize the select board chair to execute the project scope and budget agreement and exhibits on behalf of the select board for the Elmwood Elementary School project.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, so, and then is there any discussion?
Okay, by
Do you want to
roll,
Just explain for the project, this is a routine part of the process after the. vote.
this is a routine part of the process. I think I have signed 2 of these as a select board many years ago. Hard to believe. This is a routine part of the project following the successful votes for the the new Elmwood School building project. And it just authorizes the select board chair to sign the appropriate documents at the appropriate time to move the process forward.
And there are many, many pages in our packet if anyone would like to read.
Yes.
And on the
full
website,
text.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yep. Any questions or, okay. So.
We did this last time.
You voted already.
We did
yes,
already.
Yes. So how do we vote? Irfan?
Irfan Nasrullah, yes.
Mary Jo Lafreniere, yes.
Shahidul Manan, yes.
Amy Rodabush, yes.
Muriel Kramer, yes. And congratulations to the school committee, the Elmwood School Building Committee,
Yeah.
and the town. Very, very exciting.
I'm going to pass the paperwork
Pass
down.
the paperwork
There's
down.
one line left for your signature.
Okay.
So that, because we were able to get ahead on some of our business in the beginning, that brings the school committee to the end of our agenda, and I would seek a motion for the school committee to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn, school committee?
Second.
Motion by Adam, a second by Susan. All those in favor?
Aye.
And the school committee is adjourned at 9:35. Thank you all for tuning in and for all of your important.
And I'll adjourn, I'm sorry, because you reminded me I have to adjourn my meeting.
That's okay. I was just going to say what
Okay.
our next meeting is next Thursday, December 21st, 2023, which will include the superintendent's budget recommendation as well as a regular meeting. And then we will be meeting on January 4th, January 11th for our public hearing on the budget. And then again on January 18th, where we will vote to adopt a budget to turn into our town manager. So in that, I will turn that to you.
Perfect, thank you. And so I will entertain a motion for the select board to adjourn.
Madam Chair, I move the motion to adjourn the meeting.
Second, and by voice,
I was just going to say, I thought it was helpful that Nancy gave the dates.
the dates of the upcoming meetings.
So we have a full regular meeting next Tuesday where we're going to open the warrant for town meeting in May, and then we're all meeting again together January 4th, right?
Yep. Yep. Oh, 4 meetings in January, look at us,
Yes.
how great. So by voice vote, how do you vote, Irfan?
Irfan Nasrullah, yes.
Mary Jo Lafreniere, yes.
Shahidul Manan, yes.
Amy Rodabush, yes.
Muriel Kramer, yes. Thank you so much, everybody.
Yeah.
Thanks, Irfan.
Thank you so much for joining us.
Yeah.
Thank you.
For both